After nearly 2 years of investigation and 2 more months of silence since the release of his report, Special Counsel Robert Mueller spoke out publicly for the first time this morning to make it clear to the country he has no plans to do it again.
We are formally closing the Special Counsel's office, and as well, I'm resigning from the Department of Justice. Now, I hope and expect this to be the only time that I will speak to you in this manner.
Though Mueller says his public statements have not and will not go further than what he laid out in his 448-page report, was he attempting to cast a shadow on Attorney General William Barr's assertion that there was not evidence to prove President Trump obstructed justice?
If we had had confidence that the President clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
In a Senate Judiciary Committee earlier this month, Barr weighed in on Mueller's decision not to make a determination on obstruction.
He was not saying that but for the OLC opinion, he would have found obstruction.
If the special counsel found facts sufficient to constitute obstruction of justice, would he have stated that finding?
If he had found that, then I think he would state it.
But today, the soon-to-be former special counsel emphasized the role that the Department of Justice opinion played in his decision not to make a call.
The introduction to the Volume 2 of our report explains that decision. It explains that under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. That is unconstitutional.
And Mueller made it clear, since his office was unable to charge the president with a crime, that
it would be unfair to potentially accuse somebody of a crime when there can be no court resolution of the actual charge.
Donald Trump, for his part, is taking this as a win, tweeting after the press conference, "Nothing changes from the Mueller report. There was insufficient evidence, and therefore, in our country, a person is innocent. Case is closed." But is it? And have we heard the last from Bob Mueller? Joining me, former Massachusetts U.S. Attorney Don Stern, who worked alongside Robert Mueller, both during his stint with the Department of Justice and in private practice at Hale and Dorr. Don, it's good to see you.
Thank you.
Bruce Singal worked alongside Mueller in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston, was named 2017 Mass Lawyers Weekly Lawyer of the Year. Bruce, it's good to see you, too. So, Don, much of America had been waiting on this moment. But did Mueller say anything we didn't know before 11 o'clock this morning?
Well, in my view, he said too little and too late. I think he said something in the sense that he emphasized certain things as a way to attempt to correct the record that the Attorney General, I think, had misconstrued or misstated. But, you know, I think part of the problem, and I don't know if this is responsive to your question, Jim, Bob Mueller played this thing totally straight from the beginning, and I think the problem was the Attorney General has not played it, in my view, totally straight.
Nor the person who he was investigating, or the people he was investigating.
But I think what the Attorney General did in response to the Mueller report, and that's why I say it's too little, too late, is first of all, he released a summary of the Mueller report when the Mueller report contained a pretty darn good summary itself. Secondly, he misconstrued and mischaracterized what Mueller said. And third, he made a decision, the Attorney General made a decision that there was insufficient evidence for obstruction when that's what Mueller didn't say at all.
Why did he speak publicly today? My reaction was not terribly different from Don Stern's.
I don't know why he spoke. I think the reason for his speaking was not to offer anything new substantive, but to put some formal closure on his involvement in the case and hopefully discourage Congress, in his mind, from calling him as a witness by declaring this is what he's going to say.
You know, but you know, I want to get back to this repeating some things. I don't know if you said for emphasis. I played a minute ago. If we had confidence that clearly a president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. Obviously, that was intentional. He chose only a few lines out of an almost 450-page report. That was to put an exclamation mark at the end of the sentence, or was it not?
I think Mueller said nothing new today that went beyond what was said in the report. Those excerpts of the report he chose to summarize were the ones I think he felt most necessary to counter and refute what Barr had said in Barr's summary.
You know, he also says, this is from at least hinting at impeachment without ever saying the word.
The opinion says that the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing.
Was that an invitation, from Bob Mueller to Congress, or was he just stating his understanding of what he could and couldn't do and what Congress could and couldn't do?
I think it was, I don't know if it was an invitation, I think it was a reminder that the reason that the Office of Legal Counsel issued the opinion and came out the way it did, and by the way, I went back this afternoon and reread it, which is not an easy thing to do in an afternoon, but what the opinion says is that the most constitutionally permissible way to deal with a crime committed by a sitting president is impeachment, because you don't want 12 jurors to be in a room and basically convict the President of the United States. So I think what Bob Mueller was saying is not only was this a permissible way for Congress to respond, but it's in one sense the most democratic, desirable way, which is if the facts permit it, let Congress do its job.
You know, there was a letter signed by almost 1,000 former prosecutors that said, in part, as former prosecutors, federal prosecutors, who said, we believe strongly that but for the OLC, Office of Legal Counsel memo, the overwhelming weight of professional judgment would come down in favor of prosecution for the conduct outlined in the Mueller report. You signed that letter. You didn't sign that letter. Why'd you sign it?
I was proud to sign it because I have, as a federal prosecutor, I prosecuted individuals for obstruction of justice on lesser evidence than the Mueller report summarized against the president.
So why didn't you sign it?
I was out of the country, but
Would you have signed it?
Yes, I would have.
You know, I want to get back to what you said, Don, at the beginning.
And I agree with Bruce, by the way. If it was almost anybody else, there's sufficient basis to prosecute.
And it's not too late. You can still sign, by the way. Yes.
I want to get back to this thing you said in your first response, Don. Talking about you were disappointed, and I'm putting words in your mouth, that he didn't say more. In his March 27th letter to Attorney General Barr, the special counsel says, the summary letter the department sent to Congress did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of his office's work. In conclusion, there is now public confusion about critical aspects. This threatens to undermine full public confidence in the outcome of the investigation. You're former prosecutors. When you say to your boss, there is confusion, there is a threat to public confidence, don't you have an obligation to explain what the confusion is, try to allay the threat to public confidence? In my opinion, he did nothing to clarify either of these things, Don.
You know, I think it would be valuable. I mean, the one thing that Bob Mueller's missing, because I do think he will stay within the four corners of the report in the same way that a prosecutor, and I did it many times, had press conferences, talked to reporters. I tried really hard, and I think I was successful, to stay within the four corners of an indictment.
But this is a different thing.
But even taking into account that it's different, even if it was the same thing, being just a public face to explain to the public what it is you're saying and what these words mean is a public service. And what's happened is the President and the Attorney General have essentially taken over the stage, and there's no countervailing voice of reason which explains what he did.
I think it's not just a public service. I think it's a public obligation. You know, when he says the line is the report is my testimony, and no one's really clear if that means he won't go to Congress or he will go, but he'll only speak about the report. That's like, you know, 3% of Americans told us, CNN in a poll, they had read the report. I would say half of that 3% are probably lying. Half the members of Congress or more didn't read. That's like Barack Obama saying, oh, you want to understand the Affordable Care Act? Go read the 2,300 pages of the Affordable. I really consider this an abrogation of his duties. I don't mean ethical or legal. He is leaving the American people who paid his bill hanging. He has said it himself, and he's choosing to leave us there. Am I wrong?
To answer your criticism, Jim, you need to understand Mueller. He is the most...
As a person, you mean.
As a person. He is the most apolitical person in existence. He wants nothing to do with the political drama that surrounds his report. He wanted to do his job as a straight-laced prosecutor, and to him that means he leaves as his legacy whatever is in that report, and he's not going to utter one word in any congressional testimony beyond the four corners of that report. But, you know, can I tell you,
that's also BS as far as I'm concerned, with all due respect. Bill Weld was here a couple of weeks ago, obviously a former U.S. attorney, former big shot in the Justice Department. I asked former Governor Weld if he believed the president was unindictable. Here's what the governor said. So do you disagree with Mueller and the Office of Legal Counsel memo that a sitting president is unindictable?
I do. What I would have done on that evidence is sought a sealed indictment so we wouldn't be hauling the president into criminal court every day, because I do agree you can't do that.
I don't even care about your opinion on this. Mueller responded to that. I don't mean to Weld's being here. That's outside the report. No one, he doesn't, in my judgment, I actually read the report. I don't remember him saying, by the way, we couldn't seal an indictment and unseal it at the end of his presidency. So why is it okay to go outside the report to respond to that criticism and not okay to answer other questions?
That issue is in the OLC opinion. That's probably why he said it.
But it's not in his report?
No, it's not in the report. And I think he could have been consistent, Bruce, with staying within the report, staying within the four corners of the report, but still explaining it in a way that is digestible to the American people.
Will we ever hear from him again?
Not if he can help it.
Was he nervous? You both know him personally. I don't. It's the longest I've ever heard him speak, the 9 minutes today. I got the sense, which may be unfair because I don't know him, he sounded nervous. He stammered a little bit. He stuttered a little bit. He
is, ironically, for somebody who is a longtime prosecutor and trial lawyer, he is not that comfortable speaking in public, and he's not that comfortable on his feet, but particularly when it involves some political issue that he doesn't want to be involved in.
So Bruce says we won't hear from him again if he can help it. Will we hear from him again, or is this the swan song in this report?
Well, I think he's going to be subpoenaed. I think he has to show up. And if he shows up, I think he's probably going to say, I'd rather not be here. And
will he just, in response to questions, read from his report? Is that, which I think would be an improvement over what it is, because most people don't read it.
I don't know, Jim. I don't know what he'll do. I think Bruce is right that if he has his druthers, this is the end of it, but I'm not sure that he has control over that.
Well, I hope he doesn't have his druthers. Bruce, thank you so much.
Thanks for having
Good to
us.
see you.
Okay,
It's great
good.
to see you
Thanks,
as
Jim.
always.